What is going on, people? My name is Antoine, this is ATM Tech, and welcome to the channel. Today's video is actually a bit of a sad one. We have to say goodbye to one of the biggest players in not just the smartphone game, but the mobile phone game in total. But if you haven't heard the news, LG have officially announced that they're going to be bowing out of the smartphone game. Now, if you followed LG at all, you'll know they've been one of the biggest players from pretty much the start when it comes to mobile phones. Now, let's be real, LG haven't been relevant when it comes to smartphones for quite a while now. They've still given us a flagship every year, but it's been a while since an LG smartphone has really been a front runner. Now, I applaud LG. I definitely think they've had a bit of self-awareness as to where they sit in the market, and they've experimented and coming out with some interesting and sometimes wacky ideas to push a little bit of innovation to keep things interesting. So as a tribute, we're going to be going through the highlights of LG's illustrious mobile phone career. So let's throw things right back to 2006 with the LG Chocolate. Now, this phone came off the back of an era where sliding phones were definitely the in thing, and they were definitely seen as a bit of a look at me accessory. The problem is that all these sliders kind of look the same, so LG were definitely trying to push the envelope a little bit with its futuristic design and its trendy colours. The LG Chocolate was definitely one of the pioneers of the fashionable phone. So in the same year, LG hit us with one of the early smartphone and designer collaborations with the LG Prada. Now, for most people, when you think of Prada, you think of quality and you think of design. Well, with the LG Prada, it definitely missed the mark on both those points. To be honest, it had quite an uninspiring design, just a black plastic rectangular body with silver buttons at the bottom. Nothing about it really said designer. Now, this phone was one of the early smartphones, but LG took a really interesting decision to not include Wi-Fi, which, to be honest, for a smartphone was pretty unacceptable. Still, none of these things stopped the Prada from being one of LG's most successful phones and definitely a staple in its lineup. So in 2012 is where things started to get interesting. The Nexus 4 was LG's first foray into Google's Nexus program. So in case you don't know, Nexus phones is basically what Pixel phones used to be. Now, the similarities are both sets of phones would run pure Android and get all the latest software and updates from day one. But the main difference is, as we know with Pixel, Google created their own phones. With Nexus, they would approach a manufacturer and work with them in conjunction to create a phone. Also, the focus of the phones have been different. Pixel phones have been high-end phones at high-end prices, whereas Nexus phones have been high-ish end phones, but definitely at mid-range price points. Back then, LG's version of Android was pretty clunky, so having an LG phone with pure Android was smooth as hell. The Nexus 4 was also one of the first phones to have wireless charging, and again, this is going all the way back to 2012. So the Nexus 4 did so well, Google reached out to LG to work with them on their next Nexus phone. Now we enter the Nexus 5. Now, the Nexus 5 was easily the most popular Nexus phone out of the entire lineup over the years. And I think a big part of the reason is that it struck a perfect balance between price and performance. It had a 5-inch 1080p display, which back in 2013 was quite rare. Next, we have the LG G Flex, aka the banana phone. This one was definitely a weird one and had a lot of people scratching heads at the time, but the phone was definitely a talking point. So it was known as the banana phone because the phone was literally curved in the shape of a banana. Why? I don't know. It was a flexible display, so perhaps LG were just sort of trying things out, pushing the envelope to see what they could do with a flexible screen. And the banana phone is what they came out with. What was also interesting is that the back of the phone had a self-healing material, so you could scratch it and it would fix itself. I don't know, there's plenty of videos on the web about it. Here we have one of my favourites and I think a lot of wasted potential, and that's the LG G5. So this phone was quite unique for two reasons. At a time where manufacturers were putting normal lenses and zoom lenses on their cameras, the LG G5 actually put a regular lens and a super wide angle lens. Now, over the years, manufacturers figured out that a wide angle lens was more useful than a telephoto lens, but the G5 was the first to do it and it doesn't really get the credit for doing so. Mind you, those wide angle photos weren't great, but they definitely had the right idea and they were onto something. The second thing that made this phone unique was the fact that it was modular and it had different attachment or friends, as LG like to call them. So the bottom of the phone would actually slide off, and it was here you would slot the different attachments to the phone. So you had an audio DAC, which was great for plugging in a good set of headphones and getting improved audio quality. There was a 360 cam, which created really low quality 360 video that could only be viewed within the phone, but hey, it was fun. And then there was also a camera grip, which would give you a more substantial grip over the phone when taking photos, and there was a few extra controls on the grip as well. Now, this modular design was very much an experiment experimental concept, which unfortunately didn't really go anywhere, but it was good to see a different direction at a time where we may have been unsure where smartphones were going. Now up next we have the LG V10. Now this phone definitely received some high praise when it was out. At a time where manufacturers had started removing headphone jacks, the V10 doubled down and actually included a built-in DAC in the headphone jack, so you could get that quality audio all the time with your headphones. That alone made the V10 really popular with music lovers. But the thing that really gave the V10 its high praise was its best-in-class video manual mode. In 2015, smartphone cameras were still finding their feet, especially in the video department. But the LG V10 came with a video manual mode that let you control way more than what we'd seen on a smartphone before. I'm talking bitrate, ISO, frame rate, shutter speed, white balance, the whole lot. This phone was definitely ahead of the curve and a must-have for any budding smartphone filmmakers. So 2019 saw folding phones such as the Galaxy Fold and the Huawei Mate X landing in people's hands. Now while these phones came with really unique form factors, they also came with astronomical price points. LG being LG decided to step in and do something a bit different with the V50 ThinQ. I'm not sure if you'd call this a folding phone or not. Essentially you had a regular smartphone with a case attachment that also had a screen. So technically you could fold it closed, so it was a folding phone, folding case. I'm not really sure, but it was definitely a different approach, but most importantly it was more affordable. I think the main and most obvious negative about this phone is that you had a fat bezel going down the middle. It kind of felt as though you were just holding two phones rather than one continuous large screen. So on the one hand it was great for multitasking, but on the other it was a completely different experience from what you'd get with the Mate X and the Galaxy Fold. But again, I take my hats off to LG for trying something different. And finally we have the LG Wing. Released late in 2020, I don't think any of us knew that this would be the last major smartphone release from LG, but this phone is definitely a memorable send-off. It has such a unique T-shaped slider type design. You can use this phone in as many different ways as your brain can think of. Now while I love the unique design, I think this phone solves a problem that no one really had. But it's definitely LG going out with a bang, and I don't think anyone is ever going to forget this phone. But I must say, personally, as a fan of LG over the years, it is really sad to see them stepping away from the market. I've had a few LG phones over the years and I've always been silently rooting for them to make a comeback. But it's probably fair to say that financially, them continuing to make smartphones is just not viable anymore. Got Samsung and Apple as the big boys, and that third spot over the years has always been up for grabs, but I think LG are just past it now. But they've always made fantastic TVs, and I know their TV division continues to go from strength to strength. So as a whole, they'll be fine. So that's been a look back at the history of LG and some of their highlights. I hope you really enjoyed this video. It was really fun doing the research and putting all this together. If you did enjoy this video, a like is always appreciated. It helps me out a lot. But with that being said, my name's Antoine, this is ATM Tech, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.